The views and opinions expressed on Around the Town are entirely those of the host, guest, and callers, and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the faculty, staff, and students at Elizabeth City State University or ECSU Radio and Television Services.
Welcome to another edition of Around the Town with Hez Brown. And now your host, Hezekiah Brown.
Good evening, and welcome to Around Town with Hez Brown. We are so glad to have you listen to our program. As you know, the Around Town with Hez Brown is a bi-monthly program. It comes on the first and third Wednesday of each month at 6:30 p.m. on 89.9 FM, WRVS. Now listen, this is a station and this is a place where you get the news and information that you certainly cannot get anyplace else. And we thank you for tuning in. Now, as you know, each week I try to give you a few nuggets about conflict resolution, about some things related to conflict resolution, or about anything. Today, I'm just going to talk a little bit about, very small amount, about anger. You know what happened in terms of anger? Really nothing normally happens in life until someone get angry. And when they get angry is when the actions start and things start. So I would just ask you just a few questions to know. I'd like to know from you out there in the audience, what do you really do when you get angry? What do you do? How do you react when you get angry? That's number one. Number two, how do you look when you get angry? Most folks don't know how they look when you get angry. It's almost like when you get angry, you take on a new facial look, a new body look, a new emotional look. You take on a different segment of who you are. And then the other thing is number three, is do you get violent? The most peaceful person in the world do not do anything until they get angry. And when they get angry, they get violent. And there are a number of ways that you get violent. Number one, you can get physically violent, or you can get psychologically violent. And when you get physically violent, that means that you're going to put your hands on someone. You're going to hurt someone. You want to destroy someone. But the other kind of violence that more of that take place than physical violence is what is called psychological violence. Now, let me just explain to you what psychological violence really is. Psychological violence is anything that you knowingly, the key word is knowingly, anything that you do that you normally affect another or harm another person, be it psychologically, be it emotionally, be it sexually. Anything that you knowingly do to knowingly harm another person is psychological violence. Now, sometimes the psychological violence can do more harm or as much harm to a person as physical violence. And so I just wanted to point those two things out to you as my nuggets for today. Think about yourself. What do you do when you get angry? Do you want to destroy another person? Do you want to hurt another person? And you can do it two ways. You can do it physically or psychologically. And sometimes psychologically, it's just as bad as the physical violence. So that's it for today. But we are blessed today to have one of the stars in our community that's here today. And he has a job that a lot of folks would not do. A lot of folks cannot do. It takes a special kind of person to be a sheriff. And so we have today with you the sheriff of Pasquotank County, Mr. Tommy Wooten. Good afternoon, and welcome to Around Town with Hez Brown.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me, Mr. Brown. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And, Mr. Wooten, we just thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule because I know your schedule is big. It's one of those jobs where you're on duty, not always work, but on duty 24/7.
Yes.
Your telephone could ring any time of day,
You're
any
exactly
time of
right.
night.
Yep. I haven't turned my phone off yet.
Yeah. So thank you for taking time out of your schedule to join with us and talk a little bit about what is a sheriff and what does the department do? How do they function? How do they operate, Because we say the word sheriff a lot of times and we just associate that to law enforcement, but we don't think about the things that you have to do on a day-to-day basis. But let's talk a little bit about you and let's talk a little bit about your family. Let's so people get to know you. Certainly your position is sheriff of Pasquotank County.
Yes,
and
sir.
how long you been sheriff?
I was elected in December 3rd of 2018.
Tuesday. Oh, you're coming up on your first year on the job.
First year on the job, absolutely.
And you're still enjoying your job, I would assume.
Oh, yes, sir. More now than ever.
All right, wonderful. So are you married? You have kids?
Yes, I've been married to my high school sweetheart, actually. We've been married for 16 years. And I have two sons, 11 and 13, Brendan and Colton.
Wonderful. And then did you go to school locally? Well, let me ask this question first. You're born and raised in North Carolina, and I tell you the reason why. It's so many folks who live in this area. The first thing they want to know: were you born and raised here? You one of us?
It's right, I sure am. Mm-hmm. Born and raised right here in Pasquotank County. Mm-hmm. Yep, lived here my whole life.
And was your school here? Did you go to school here?
I sure did. I started at Weeksville Elementary School, the old school. Mm-hmm. Went to P.W. Moore, back to Weeksville School. Then the old Liv City Middle School, go Buzzers. Mm-hmm. That was back when there was so many students in one school. You had the Buzzers and the Stingers in the same school. Mm-hmm. We had two football teams. We had two of every team. Right. Went from there to Northeastern High School and graduated Northeastern High School in 2000.
Wonderful. Okay. Now, as I said again, law enforcement is a very unique kind of work. Mm-hmm. It takes a lot of preparation. You can't fill out an application and say, I want to be sheriff of Pasquotank County. Mm-hmm. It's something that you have to do in preparation. But the first question is, did you grow up wanting to work in law enforcement?
Actually, no. I did not. When I was young, I aspired to, I guess like most young men, follow the footsteps of my father. My father was a long-standing tugboat captain. And so I grew up actually working on tugboats. Every summer break from school when I was like 12, 13 years old, when I actually had to start working, because I took some trips on the tugboat as well when I was like 8, 9 years old just to see the sights. And I got to see a lot of different things from Maine all the way around to Houston, Texas, and San Juan, Puerto Rico. I got to do a lot of traveling on the ocean. When I got old enough to work, that's what I wanted to do. It's all I knew. So I did that for a long time. And, while most students were having fun during the summer, I was making some good money out on the ocean, and I did that. That's where I come from, actually, just working on tugboats full time. And once I got married, they have a saying in the tugboat world is, easy living, hard life. Because I was gone away from home 9 months out of the year. I was gone on the water, traveling and working. So me and my wife made the decision it was time for me to be home. So I came on back home and decided I had a couple little small jobs before I decided to go in basic law enforcement.
Yeah. As I said again, what did you do to prepare yourself? Because, along the line, there are some listeners out there who says, well, maybe one day I want to be in the police department. One day I want to be in a correctional officer. One day I want to be in a sheriff department. What did you do to prepare yourself to be the sheriff? How did you go about doing that?
Okay. Well, started thinking about it after I, left the tugboat world. I said, well, I want to do something in life where I can leave my mark, so to speak, where I can help people. And the first thing that come up, there wasn't very many careers, in Pasquotank County, Liv City to choose from. And I'm homegrown. I don't intend on going anywhere, not unless I'm going on vacation. I'm planning on staying right here. This is where my roots are. It's where I'm going to stay. So I started thinking, well, I had a couple friends of mine that said, you should come to the sheriff's office. Had a couple more said, you should come to the police department, try law enforcement. So once I went and got the application through College of the Albemarle, you have to kind of sit down and look at yourself in the mirror and prepare yourself mentally to go into a world where it's not all about you. It's not all about you going to work at and there's nothing wrong with it, but not going to work in your cubicle, you do what you have to do, and then you leave. You're going to work for 41,000 other people to keep them safe and to protect them. So there's a lot of mental preparation into doing that than just filling out an application. And then there's the physical side of it too. I had to start running, push-ups, sit-ups, you name it. I had to start working out intensely to, get through the POPAT, which is the Police Officer Physical Analysis Test. So mentally is much tougher, than the physical aspect of it. Those few things are some things I know right off the top of my head that you have to be in the game, and it has to be something that you want to do, and you don't just jump into it. So I did some research with my family, friends, and other law enforcement in the community that were already doing it. And they kind of educated me. And you don't want to talk to just one person. You need to talk to many people. So I did just that and kind of felt like, okay, this is where I fit. So I'm going to give it a shot.
Part of this also is a number of things that go on in terms of supervision as part of the sheriff department. So how many employees do you supervise, and how many is in your department?
At the sheriff's office right now, we're about right at 50 full-time sworn deputies, and we have another 40 that include the records division, court security, and part-time workers. So broke up into various divisions, and so we was right at about 90.
And tell the audience, because sometimes people think that you have a title and a job, Tell the audience a little bit about what a day looked like for the sheriff from the time you get up in the morning until the end of the day. What does it look like a day of work for a sheriff?
Oh, boy. Well, your day usually starts pretty early. It can be anywhere from 1 in the morning to 2 in the morning to 5 in the morning. Depends on when the phone goes off. So, get up in the morning. I usually get up early, got to have a cup of coffee. When you get to the office, there's a little joke I always tell everybody is that, I get paid to go to meetings now. It's what I do. But these meetings are very important. It not only connects you with the other people in the community, it also educates you on what's going on in the community and how you can be of service to different organizations. So I usually come into the office. The first things I do is I get up, I'm hitting my email. I'm looking at all my emails. I try to respond and or delegate every single email that I get. I check my emails. I got to have a little bit of OCD. I can't stand for that notification to be on my emails. I'm going to check it. So I get through my emails and I get through my voicemails on my phone. It's the first things I do when I get to the office. But I have to make a beeline directly to my office to get that job done. Because when you come in the door as a leader of an agency, being elected, you don't just, it's very bad juju to go in there and pass everybody because you're too busy to speak to your employees. I will never do that, ever. So I go back door, get my stuff done, come back down and tell everybody good morning. I do it every single morning. As soon as you get to the office, then after I do the emails and tell everybody good morning, there's meetings scheduled. You have your admin staff coming in. There's, you're talking about budget. You get past budgets. We need check requests. All the business starts hitting you first thing in the morning. And then you have to leave a little bit of time in sudden situations for those emergency situations that pop up, whether it be a call we have to answer, they need a decision to make on something, or we're having a personnel issue that we need to deal with. So as soon as you get there in the morning, it's pretty busy from then on.
Let's pause for a moment. We will be right back with more Around the Town with Hez Brown.
WRVS 89.9 provides training for all students and volunteers interested in radio broadcasting. But without your donations, this radio station will go silent. Let's make a sound today. Now is a great time to give back to public radio. Make a tax-deductible donation by calling 252-335-3985 or online at www.ecsu.edu/WRVS.
You are now listening to Around the Town with Hez Brown.
Tell the audience, what is your worst nightmare?
Oh, mercy. I did a lot of thinking on this one. I think, being a father, I think personally, on a personal level, outside of being a sheriff, my worst nightmare would be going to a call and there's my child. Right. That's worst nightmare personally. But for purposes of the show, being a sheriff, my worst nightmare, I'm 100%, and I've told everybody this from day one, God put me where I'm at. There's no other way to say it. You can't calculate it. It was his plan. I'm just along for the ride. My worst fear is settling. My worst fear is being in a position that, okay, I'm here, I'm done. To that I say absolutely not. My worst fear is getting complacent and not shooting for anything else. So, day one when I got in office, I have a lot of notes I keep. We have projects on boards. We're constantly always shooting after the next goal. So that's my worst fear, is settling and not continuously fighting till the day I'm gone for this earth to fulfill my purpose that I feel like God's gave me.
Well, I think that the prior sheriff is almost like a legacy in terms of heading that department. He had it for years and years and years, so you had some big shoes to fill.
Absolutely.
So do you feel you've made a difference since you've been the sheriff in the department?
Personally, I do. I feel like I've made a pretty good impact on expounding on what Sheriff Cartwright did with 24 years of service. I mean, 24 years, God bless him. That's a long time to wear the sheriff's hat. And I can personally tell you that after the first year that you wear a lot of hats. There's not enough hat racks to hang every one of them. So, but I feel like that the foundation that he laid, I was able to, expand upon that. And we've made a lot of good changes at the sheriff's office. Everything from, structure, ranking structure, pay, all the way down to the different programs that we have in the community. And we've got a tremendous amount of great feedback from the community.
Now there's a new phenomenon that's out there, and it's called opioids.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
And it appears that opioid is attacking mostly the rural communities as opposed to intercity in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have that kind of a problem? And if so, how are we addressing that problem?
We are. In Elizabeth City and Pasquotank County, we are definitely having an opioid and or heroin issue, combining the two. So I can tell you that this problem that we do have a problem here, the problem has no prejudice at all. This problem has been affecting anybody, people from high class, medium class, low class, because we look into the numbers on that. I've been asked several times about that. And it doesn't seem to have any prejudice whatsoever, and it's the worst thing I've ever seen as far as, had somebody had a personal experience with this one time, and they, due to peer pressure and influence, they tried it one time. They tried heroin that had fentanyl in it, which is an opioid, and it scared him so bad for the next 3 days, all this person could think about was, I need more. I need more. I can't think about anything else. I just breathe. I need some more. So after 3 days, it eased off, and it scared him so bad, he's never touched another thing, nothing. Mm-hmm. So, and I'd go as far as to say he's one of the lucky ones. Right. And because you're always chasing that first high from talking to some addicts, going to a lot of meets and stuff, you're consistently always chasing that next high. So we do have a problem with that here in Pasquotank County. Few of the ways that we're trying to cope with this is doing a lot of saturation patrols. Sheriff's office right now only has 2 people that are dedicated every single day, more than 40 hours a week, to narcotics and drugs. Mm-hmm. So next year, I'm planning to expand that by at least 4 more actually, with 2 K9s and 2 more drug officers, because we need it. We need someone not to just be behind the scenes. We need people out there beating the bushes, so to speak, trying to find out the lower level drug dealers, where they're coming from, where they're hanging out at, where, and beating that level down. And we've been pretty successful without having those extra positions thus far. I've sent the patrol deputies, who patrols your first line of defense in any law enforcement agency. They're your eyes on the street. So we've sent a lot of them. We've been going to trainings. I'm not scared to say it, we've burnt right through our training budget, because I'm a firm believer in training. It educates your deputies to do a better job, to be more efficient at their job. So patrol deputies have got an astronomical amount of drugs from traffic stops, and just taking the initiative. Initiative is a big thing at the sheriff's office, to set on somebody or watch what somebody's doing and notice that they're selling drugs or they're transporting drugs, and be able to build your case as a patrol deputy, where you would think an investigator is supposed to do this. So that's how we've started it, and we've been very successful thus far, working with the Albemarle Drug Task Force, which is the sheriff's office and the police department working together to combat this problem together, so our numbers are stronger. And that's been working really well too. They've had a lot of good busts. We're finding a lot of key players, but I'm hoping this coming up July, you're going to see a a nice size expansion of your sheriff's office to help with that very problem. And it's going to be expanded in such a way where the community is going to be able to actually put their eyes on their tax money.
That's so, Sheriff, I'm a firm believer. I worked in the field of labor relations for a lot of years. Mm-hmm. I mediated many strikes and lockouts and all those things over the years. And one of the things that I was able to develop was a preventive program, over a period. And then its program was used all over the country and sometimes out of the country. Mm-hmm. And preventive is one of the things that I advocate for all the time, So it sounds like to me that you're also doing some preventive work. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important because it's all right to lock people up when they do wrong, and we can never get away from locking people up.
Yes.
But what can we do as a community, as a sheriff department, as a police department, as a politician? What can we do to do some preventive work in terms of this kind of
okay. Yeah, the biggest thing is if you see something, say something. That's that's a big terminology that's used throughout all law enforcement across the state and country. The community is our best advocate for information. I tell everybody we're never going to arrest our way out of this problem. That's not going to happen. You're exactly right on that. You have to burn this candle at both ends. One end being when the law is broken, you have to enforce the law, arrest. On the other end, we're very involved. I have a meeting actually tomorrow with a lot of NA members, Narcotics Anonymous, Alcohol Anonymous, coming in to start some new programs that they want to do in conjunction with the sheriff's office and their local law enforcement. So we got that rolling. We have churches are a huge help. Churches in our community are a huge help being an advocate for helping people become sober, help people recover. So I know that there's a lot of, at Town South Church of Christ, is church I attend. I've referred a lot of people there. Every Friday at 6:30, they have a Celebrating Recovery. We did a lot of work. I've done a lot of talking and work with the Serenity House. It's on Pearl Street. They have a lot of meetings there. I've referred a lot of people there. I think the biggest thing I'm trying to say is to get the community involved. No one has $1 billion that we can have to set aside these different programs. So the community has to step up, and we have to come together as a community to help combat this problem by having meetings and bring in. There's a program, I believe it's called Life Angel, goes way back, and having meetings like that to come around to get people that were addicts at one time to come in to try to run the show, because you get much more of a good response from someone who's been through it. So I know that the sheriff's office is very involved in, I was working with a young lady named Miss Howe trying to get a house, a halfway house here that's built for recovery purposes, just like the Serenity House. So I think the biggest thing is trying to create our own resources here, because it is so expensive. It's very expensive to do anything. And I'm sure you've heard a lot of times, there's just no resources here. There's just, sometimes you got to make your own. And the sheriff's office is a huge advocate for all of those avenues, both ends. And I weren't going to say this, but I'll put this out there that I'm working on a program for our local jail. Hopefully we can use it at the prison. It's to help addicts that get locked up, unfortunately, or become incarcerated. There is a new program that the state pays for medications to give to the addicts while they're in jail, and they go through it's like to wean them off of when they have the withdrawals, and you give them this medicine and try to get them sober while they're inside the facility, from a medical standpoint. So when they come out, that's not all that's on their mind, is that I'm going to leave the jail and go directly out to get another hit of heroin or whatever it is, because that's how powerful this drug is.
I'm so happy to hear that, because, sometimes we call these places correctional institutions, and sometimes people go into the institution and they're worse off when they come back. So if you're doing something now to prepare them to come back into society, I applaud you for that. And
I appreciate it. And the states actually, this is not going to be one of those unfunded mandates that we have. It's a program that was come up with by the states, and, all law enforcement going to the meetings that we go to. And this is the idea that comes when you have an addict come in. They're already incarcerated. They're, for lack of a better way to put it, they're being punished. Right. They're paying their debt to society, but while they're in there, let's correct the problem. Let's rehabilitate the person.
That's correction institution. That sounds like what you're talking. Right.
That's right.
Now, let's just turn to one other thing that I know, and I don't hear much about this. As I move around town, I'm quite observant. Mm-hmm. And what about gangs? Mm-hmm. I'm just saying you don't hear much about it. I'm hoping that the reason is that we don't have the kind of a problem that we read about across the country and other places. What about that?
Yes, we definitely have gangs here in Pasquotank County. There's no doubt about it. You see more of the activity in the gangs here, Bloods, Crips. There's different sets in different parts of towns. And they do fight. I know you've heard about there's been a ration of shootings over a period of time, definitely gang-related. One piece that really hits me in my heart is that we see a tremendous amount of gang activity in our middle schools. Not saying the schools are unsafe, because they're not in the school flashing gangs, doing things they shouldn't be doing, but we have filtered it down from graduates, high school to middle school, and it is very prevalent at the middle school level, which to me is very concerning that we have that problem there, which is why I changed all the trainers that we give our school resource officers. They will be going to gang trainers. They already have been. And when they go to their conferences, they're given all the information that other schools in our state, what they've been dealing with as far as gangs. But it is very prevalent. It is a problem. It is directly related to our drug problem. So, this is one of the ways that I decided. I said, look, we have a gang problem here. We have a drug problem here. If we can't hit both of them at the same time due to resources, hit where it's going to hurt. Back in the old day, you hit them where it's going to hurt, hit them in the pocketbook. That's what they tell you, hit them in the pocket. So we're going to be hitting drugs really hard, which is going to allow us by default to try to slow down some of the gang issues that we're having.
Wonderful. As I said again, I'm all over town. I'm really around town most of the time. And as I said again, I haven't heard a lot. Maybe it's you sharing this with us about it, but I feel very good a lot of times. And I feel good about you because one of the things that I haven't heard anything negative about you as a sheriff, and I want to applaud you for that.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm glad. Yeah. I really am. Thank you.
Right. Obviously, you're doing a good job because, there are a certain amount of people who go and look at, but not what's right, but what they perceive to be something wrong. So
that's correct.
We thank you for the work that you're doing. I know you don't hear that too often, because you get paid to do it. But I'll tell you, thank you for the work that you're doing in our county. You know what I mean? I know another thing that you're quite active in the community itself. Yes. And I think that's another thing because, you can't get to know the community. You can't really assess what is going on unless you're out there. Mm-hmm. And I know you're out there. Tell us some of the community programs that you are currently involved in and some of the ones you want to be involved in and some of the ones you think others should be involved in to help the sheriff and the law enforcement do their job.
Yes. We've done so much because, I'm a firm believer in, as a leader of this sheriff's office, and the chief law enforcement officer in the entire county, it's your responsibility to not going to go with the cliche, be transparent. That should be a give me. That should be common in any agency. You should be transparent. But I had this idea, this vision to make the sheriff's office the community sheriff's office, to have the deputies very involved in the community in every facet that we could possibly be. So when we come up with all these, myself and Sergeant Alexander, who's a huge advocate for community policing, so instead of just having a community policing division, I said, no, we're not gonna bring this down to 2 or 3 people. This entire office is about community policing. So everybody's going to partake. And we've had I was told I couldn't do it. No one will ever sign up to be on a civic unit. We had over a dozen deputies sign up the first day. And some of the things that were, and the stigma that surrounds all first responders in society, as a leader of a law enforcement agency, you have no choice but to lay your cards on the table. If you are who you say you are on this microphone right here or at a podium somewhere else, Don't say it, do it. So I'm a firm, action speaks much louder. So in doing that, that's one of the big goals that I made, community involvement. I campaigned on it, and I meant it 100%. So I want the sheriff's office, like I said, to be the communities. In doing that, we have so many. I was counting up the other day. We've done 50 since I've been in office, 50 special events, which is a lot, when you got everything else. Yeah, everything else that you're supposed to be doing on top of that. And most of the deputies, I would go as far as to say at least 75% of all the deputies at the office, probably 80% have participated. So in some of the things that we had going on, we got a summer program that's going to be starting this coming up summer. We're targeting middle schoolers because, middle school is the most influential age that you can be. So we got that going on. We have Hero Day. We did Hero Day the other day at Weeksville School. We're going to be hitting all the schools. Hero is helping encourage real occupations. And not everybody's going to go be a lawyer. Not everybody's going to go be a doctor. There might be some of our generation or the youth coming up that want to be a farmer, that want to work at Burger King and work their way up to a management position at a franchised restaurant or facility, and they need to know that that's okay. It's all about what you're passionate about and what you love to do. That's where you're going to get fulfillment. So we're going to all the schools to let people know, hey, I don't get paid that much. I'm a law enforcement officer, but I love what I do. And if you're happy, everything will be okay. The good Lord will take care of you. And we have, we did the Cops and Kids water gun fight. That was about the biggest. We had about almost 300 kids come to that event. And that event, the purpose behind that event, which was we thought it together, Deputy Jeremy Perquette helped us put that together. It was a time for the kids to see law enforcement as their equal, if that makes sense. We're here to have fun with you. We're not just here all the time with a badge and a gun to come down on nobody. We're here to have fun, and it's not all about, you're serious when you're on the job, don't get me wrong, but you got to connect with every level of age with your community. You have to connect with everybody. And the youth is one thing that I've said many times is that I'm very passionate about. We got to get the kids in our corner, so to speak, so they trust us.
I was at P.W. Moore School last week, and I did see you and some of the sheriff over the department, and I saw them lining up, giving the kids a high five, and I thought that I wished I could have recorded because, what I'm saying is that the law enforcement is not our enemy.
That's right. That's correct.
And I think the kids should see that at an early age and see you doing the things that you're doing now. You're
exactly right, and we appreciate that. And I don't dare try to hide the fact that law enforcement has its bad apples. They do. Law enforcement definitely has their bad apples, and every facet a bad apple could be. We have them. Law enforcement has them. They're not exempt from that. And but at the same time, we want to try to have a generation of our youth coming up that not just respect law enforcement, but love them, learn to not be afraid of them. I have deputies. We're not going to go to a call to scare somebody's child. That's not what we're here to do. We will come talk to your child. We will give them a stern talking to, but we're not going to come in and threaten them with all these horrible things because that may leave a lasting effect that we really don't want. So we got a lot of programs with the kids. That program that you witnessed happened to be Jeremy Perquette's birthday. So they all love him to death. But we started an initiative through Jeremy Perquette and some of the other school resource officers. It's called Candy Cop. So, what better way than go disrupt the learning environment for a second. We ain't got in trouble yet. I hope we don't. But and give them a little sucker, just to tell them, hey, we love y'all. We're here for y'all. If y'all need anything, don't be scared. Just come talk to us. We're here to protect you. And because to get a little personal about it, and it always gets me all teared up when I talk about it, we had a young child that looked at Sergeant Alexander and looked at him when he come into the room and had this, never mind, he had this bowl full of suckers, all kids love candy. Right. And he said, oh no, he said, please, don't shoot me. And this little kid said this, and I'm like, I was standing just outside the door, and Sergeant Alexander looked back at me, and we made eye contact, and I was like, and I just pointed back at the kid, to tell him to turn back around and just try to fix that. So when we left, he stayed with that child. And I think it was either the mother or the father had been arrested by an officer. And when something bad happens, I think us as law enforcement, you have to remember that. You don't know what any kid has been through in their life. So when you go, don't judge a book by its cover. When you're going to deal with somebody, or you have to, treat it as if it was your own kid. We have this funny saying in law enforcement: you talk to everybody like you talk to your mama.
Right.
So that helps us with that, to try to beat that stigma out in our town. And I don't know about any other town. I'm focusing on Pasquotank County, and we're going to make this work. We're going to make everybody's going to love everybody. And so that was a huge thing of mine, because it's one of the most things I'm passionate about, and I get the most fulfillment out of, is not being, oh, you're the sheriff. Yeah, I don't get all into the titles. I am the sheriff, so I look at the responsibilities. I'm responsible to every small child just as I am every grown person. And so I want to make that everlasting effect across the board. So we do a lot of community programs. We have, if you want me to give you a few, I wrote down
just a few more because time is. Okay.
So we have, for the young men that we want to grow up to be grown men, respectable men, we have Sergeant Anthony Alexander has done Talking Ties. We're getting ready to start that. Talking Ties is we're going to encourage our young men in the community. We're going to have different speakers come in, and we'll do it quarterly, to come in and talk to the young men, to tell them how they were successful and how to act. And then we have the Hero Day, which I explained, and we are currently in our phase 2 with the community, like Candy Cop and all these things. We have a phase 2 that we're getting ready to implement next year, but I'm going to keep that one a secret. I already told you about the summer camp, and we're going to start having town hall meetings as well in the community, north, city, and south of the county. So you'll see that coming.
Wonderful. Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. I want to thank Sheriff Wooten for coming in today to talk to us about, I have a new name for him, for the department. It's called a humanistic approach to law enforcement.
Absolutely.
I think that's what it is, because, sometimes people don't think that law enforcement is, don't think that they understand, don't think they're human. But I think what you heard today is a humanistic approach to law enforcement. And I just want to applaud Sheriff Wooten and thank him for taking time out of his busy schedule to come in.
You're very welcome, and I'm blessed. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Around the Town with Hez Brown, recorded and produced at WRVS-FM Studios on the campus of Elizabeth City State University. If you are interested in becoming an underwriter for this show, call 252-335-3985.